I've had such a good time getting to know these HIDA directors and all of the great prevention work that they're doing. I want to take a minute and just share with you all how important this session is today and um, explain to you not just what a big lift this was for ADAPT, in that it was a completely um, enhanced way of translating the science with our partners, but how we've changed throughout that journey, how it's had an impact on us too. And because it's had an impact on us, we have just felt this pressure and responsibility and desire to bring it forward to you and communicate what we have felt to you so that you can also feel the stirring and have the same enlightenment that we've had over the last few months. So when I say that this is new, that it was a bigger lift for ADAPT, we're a team of 5 here, I mean it in this way. The traditional type of technical assistance requests that come in are kind of just within a general wheelhouse of topics: evaluation, implementation support, identifying best practices, all of these things that we're kind of familiar with as prevention professionals, but you need some technical skills in. And those all have been meaningful to us as well, because we've had an opportunity to develop relationships, quite honestly, with all of you in your communities, with your organizations, and in the important work that you do, and understand a little bit why it's important to you with the unique needs in your communities. But this topic, when we went to look at the science, it was the first time, similar to bringing forward substance use communications evidence and trying to make sense of that and translate it in a usable and feasible way, we felt similar. But the difference is that this particular topic involved us as individuals, because the relationship takes two. And so there was work being done to motivate and elicit various responses in youth. And there's also work that's being done within, like Dr. Bethel and Zach introduced us to this morning. So all that said, this is our first time building a paradigm as a form of translation of the best available evidence. And it was hard work, but we had the most amazing partners involved in that. And I want to highlight them again. The Center for Behavioral Health Integration, Dr. Jody Kamen, and the Child and Adolescent Health Measurement Initiative. You just heard from Dr. Christy Bethel. They were with us all along the way, holding our hands, helping us through it. We also had 6 different audiences, 6 different institutes that we would pose a various translation of the evidence to and have them give feedback and share with us, is this relatable? Does this make sense in the way that it's framed? What about with these words? And so you get the benefit of this entire approach to translating relationship science for the purposes of outcomes that are important to all of us. Those are preventing the onset and escalation of youth substance use, preventing mental health conditions in youth, preventing violence in youth, and preventing suicide in youth. Those are the 4 outcomes that we went to the literature for to try to understand this better. What role do relationships play in those outcomes? And so I'll be introducing you today to a way of thinking about this, an organized way of thinking. We call that a paradigm. And we have prepared a toolkit. You're all used to various toolkits coming out of ADAPT because that's kind of our niche. That's one way that it makes sense to us, right? And you all have told us, share with us some instruction, right? Share with us some guidance, share with us some examples, and all of that makes sense in a toolkit. This toolkit brings this particular topic to life. And so I'm going to use this session to orient you to that toolkit while concurrently orienting you to the paradigm. Okay. We talked a little this morning about the very specific type of relationship that we're leaning into with the summit, that between a trusted adult and a youth. And so I'd like for you to leave this session with a better understanding of just how important you are, not just in your role as a trusted adult, but in your role as a law enforcement officer, in your role in corrections, as a healthcare provider, as a teacher, as a parent, as a coalition, and lifting up higher, thinking about as groups of people, just how important you are, because you can make a difference. And Zach talked about these mattering moments, right? And just how powerful they can be with youth. And so we'll scale these concepts a little bit. But today will be an opportunity to explore the 4 parts of an intentional way of being that comprise this very specific health promoting relationship. And we'll identify some ways that maybe you can grow your ability. You're already doing so much of this. But today we're validating that it works, right? According to the science, but also from your own experiences, you've had your own indicators of that effectiveness. And beyond validating that it works, we're helping to organize it in a very specific way so that you have a reference, you have something to turn to, something to lean on in this toolkit for you to go back. And I keep a toolkit by my bed, believe it or not, because we've had 4 different versions of this toolkit, and I'm always thinking about it. It's at the forefront of my mind now, and I'm always getting other ideas that I might want to add into it that seem important because it's a priority for me now. It's a priority for the ADAPT team. It's a priority for these HIDAs and their communities that have experienced the Youth Prevention Institutes. The paradigm, the way of thinking, begins at its base with the 4 intentional way of being strategies. The first one is creating a positive environment, emotional and physical environment. That's the first thing we do in that moment with a youth. The second thing is facilitating connection. And I'm going to do a deep dive into 16 specific facilitators of connection that you can use. The next thing is what we call adult micro skills. These are skills, smaller skills, like Zach perfectly broke down the skills of noticing, affirming, and meeting to cultivate this belief of I matter. Those are micro skills in this toolkit. That's the way that we've kind of organized it, because together they can foster the sense of mattering. Alone, they can get close to it, but together, powerful, right? So micro skills that we can engage in with our youth. And then finally, youth skills, very specific skills that we can foster in youth and guide them and coach them and be present for them with, and help to equip them then to experience these beliefs that we're going to talk about. That's the way of being in health promoting relationships. And the reason that's important is because the science is showing if we do this, we foster these 5 core beliefs. I am seen and loved. I matter. I can influence my life and health. I can overcome hard things, and I have support. And I don't just mean I can come to you when something is challenging or concerning or I'm hurt. Support means I know you're going to expose me to new possibilities for my life, and you're going to connect me with people that are going to empower and help me in my decisions and in my future. So, big wide world, 5 core beliefs that we are centering in on. Beyond the beliefs, then, the why we're doing this, right? We just talked about the how. The why is because we want to foster protection. We want to foster flourishing in them. This is the science here. Those protective and flourishing factors are all familiar to you. You are all engaging in a lot of work already that builds those up. But those are intermediary outcomes towards these longer term outcomes of prevention of those four things: substance use, mental health, suicide, and violence in youth, and flourishing in youth. This is the health promoting relationships paradigm. It's the organized way of thinking about it that the toolkit unfolds for you. It's a big toolkit. And I want to orient you to it right now. Adapt team, I think we are going to go ahead and upload a link now in the chat box to this toolkit. It is on our Prevention Intervention Resource Center as of today. This is the final version. Man, it feels good to say that because we have worked so hard on different versions of this with all of you, and this is it. This is what we're going to stick with for a little bit longer. We'll consider it a living document as we continue to learn, but this is the version for today for this summit. It's ready. What you see here is the table of contents. The page numbers on here as you're downloading it, it's in PDF form. We recommend you print it only because every single Institute participant that experienced the 2-day training on this topic said that the printed out version was priceless because they're flipping back and forth and wanting to reference multiple things at once. So unless you have multiple monitors to put different pages on, it makes sense to print it. It would not be cheap. So grayscale might be okay, but we recommend, if you have an organization, getting it bound and investing in some hard copies of it. Pages 68 is an orientation. Then we talk you through the protective beliefs. We share with you the different pieces of the way of being, strategies within that. We talk to you about how to reach the full potential of the relationship by understanding differences and preferences for connection, navigating that, capacity for connection, expectations for connection. All of that plays in to our ability to develop a health promoting relationship. And then after that, we have 6 different playbooks. And so these are kind of the roles that were the most common that have come forward through TA requests, and they can be adapted in different ways. But the playbooks offer 2 pages worth of concrete application to healthcare providers as a role, to law enforcement and justice system as a role, to coalitions as a role, to parents and caregivers. What am I missing, Patty? Educators, and there's one more. Healthcare providers, educators, prevention professionals, coalition, and coaches. Thank you. Sports coaches. That was the final ad because we've had coaches ask for how can I talk with youth? And so about substance use. So those are the playbooks. And then after that, if you're inspired by this content and it makes sense to you, like it has to many, we've provided some guidance on how to share it with 7 main messages that this summit brings to life. Hopefully, as you hear them more and more, they'll become part of your way of understanding as well the power of relationships. And then finally, we've got a couple assessments. These assessments were developed for self-reflection by ADAPT, for organizational reflection as well by ADAPT. We have 3 total. And all of those things make up the health promoting relationships paradigm toolkit. I'm going to talk through different pieces now, but what I've done is I put the page numbers up there for you if you'd like to run along with me within the PDF itself, because the more time you spend with it, the more you get to know it and familiarize yourself with it, the more it will become a resource and a reference for you. And that's our goal. That's our hope, is that it can be supportive for you in some way. This morning we talked about and have seen 2 different presentations around the factors, so many of them, that actually prevent harmful behaviors in youth and promote the protection and flourishing that we all want for our youth, that they can be cultivated through relationships with trusted adults. We know that. It's a fact. And we reviewed earlier this morning a definition we can ground in for what a trusted adult is. And a key piece of this is that trusted adults are chosen by those youth. They choose us, and they choose to receive what we are offering them as well. We support, we encourage positivity through their eyes, and that's how we build trust with them. And some of the qualities we drew out is that it can be anyone. Youth have said this, they came up with that definition. It can be anyone. And some of the qualities of a trusted adult, we're going to get into a little bit later, but pulled from the same document, represent and validate what the other pieces of science have shown. And I do just want to mention that Zach was talking about the quality of the relationship. And if you recall, we deconstructed a relationship earlier into 3 parts. Its structure. So how many and how frequent are those encounters with people, right? So the more you've got, the more variety that you've got can make a difference. The function of those relationships, and we asked, well, what function do we have as trusted adults? What role do we play in meeting all those buckets of needs that we saw, right? We've got a real function in their lives. And then the quality, how positive and satisfying, significant is that experience with us. The second message then that we covered earlier was that a health promoting relationship, this is what we're calling this intentional way of being. That's a health promoting relationship. It's not your run of the mill relationship, because the relationships come in all different sizes and types. And we're talking about a health promoting relationship, one that enables health and well-being in youth by cultivating protected beliefs. And I wanted to spend just a moment, because I think it's important for you to understand, well, Laura, if we're exposing kind of this dimension, and it's not that we're the only ones exposing this. If you've worked in positive youth development, right, and social emotional learning, like it's there. It's there. There are flavors and sometimes explicit mentions of beliefs that we're aiming to create. But there is not really an explanation of why that's important. How are beliefs formed? What's happening in the mind when this happens? And so very briefly, it's important for us to understand there's always a trigger for this new idea. And remember, thoughts are different than beliefs, not fleeting events going through our minds, right? Fleeting pieces of information. Beliefs are what we know to be true, what we hold to be true, that we accept to be true and know to be true. That's a belief. And in order for a new belief to form, there's usually a trigger. There's sensory input of some sort. It doesn't have to be words, but words are a primary way. Words matter. It could be that tone, that environment that you're creating. So just a sense of anger or love or that experience, right? Could be memories. That sensory, that is another piece of input, another type of trigger. And so this information then creates this idea of a new belief. And we evaluate it. What happens in our mind is that you see all these little dots around. These are pre-existing beliefs. And we ask ourselves, our mind goes through this. To what degree does the belief explain the trigger? Does it make sense? So if this person is noticing me and telling me that I am adding value in some way, and I start to originate a belief of I matter. If that is a brand new belief for me and it's coming up against all these pre-existing beliefs where maybe in my home or in other environments, I have had other beliefs cultivated that I don't matter. Maybe they're the direct opposite. It's so much harder for that new belief to be formed. A seed can be planted, but that belief is going under intense scrutiny to determine if it's going to solidify and arrive at some sense of conviction to form a new belief, actually be one that stays with us. And so think about those moments that Zach was referencing. if youth are walking throughout, even if, let's say at home, something wonderful is happening, right? Wonderful is happening. Beliefs, strong core beliefs are being cultivated. They go out into the world and maybe that's reinforced by their school setting, different trusted adults. But then they enter a community setting and they engage with someone who cultivates maybe a slightly different sense. Or maybe it's a peer. Maybe it's a peer that's suggesting something different, right? It's going to take a lot for that belief to stick. And the opposite happens as well. If you're coming from a place where negative beliefs have been cultivated as your core beliefs, and you're being introduced to a new positive belief, such as I matter, it's going to take a lot. And that's why every moment matters to create these core beliefs. And that's why we play very important roles in their lives. So now that you understand that, something that happened the other night, and I just want to bring this forward because it was very poignant at the time. As we were preparing this toolkit, I was laughing because Zach noted that I had been in the red for a little bit in terms of distraction as we prepared for the summit. And 2 nights ago, my 15-year-old, I have an 11, 13, and 15 girl by girl. My 15-year-old girl, and we've got she's navigating her own relationships with boys, and we're figuring all this out together. It's 11:30 at night, knee deep in finishing up this toolkit. I walk into the kitchen and Audrey's there and she's making a little snack. You know, she stays up later. These teens have different schedules. And I was surprised and I said, "Hey, sweetie, are you done with your homework or why are you up so late?" And she's like, "No, I was just hungry. I'll go to bed in a few minutes." And so I proceed to get something to eat because I've got more to do. And I've got on my mind, I'm distracted, right? I want to get this toolkit perfect for all of you. And she starts talking to me, chatting it up like she's never chatted it up before. And I actively thought, but because of this work, I actively thought, what belief am I cultivating in her right now? If I say, "Sweetie, I'm just too busy. I have to get back to this." I thought about that. And I was happy that I did because I took 30 minutes. She wanted to talk about some insights she had had related to a boy. And I am so glad. I cherish that time talking with her. I don't know that I would have done that prior to really learning about all this if I had such work on my plate. And I bring that up to you because my goal is to really be authentic with all of you in this presentation because we are humans, we are imperfect human beings, and I saw from all of you how important this material is to you as you were listening to Zach and Dr. Bethel. It's just as important to us. We've been changed. We've been transformed. We're trying to enhance our own way of being with the youth in our lives. And these 3 questions were brought forward by Dr. Brian Bobarger, who's part of the ADAPT team, and in one of our first institutes. And I really appreciate them because beyond just what belief am I cultivating, which I want to encourage you, have that as a lens as you move forward in your interactions with youth. But am I building or reinforcing a protective belief? Am I doing nothing and simply missing an opportunity? Or am I potentially building or reinforcing a negative or harmful belief? That's now really important to this paradigm and to this way of thinking. So let's see if Slido works with all of you. There are so many of you that have joined us. We have almost 2,000 of you that registered. I can't tell how many are on at this time, but let's try it out. Join Slido if you can, using this QR code, and just think about what's one belief you hold true about yourself. Oh, good. Thanks, Patty. Yeah, so we've got 923 of you. Oh, good. It's working. Yes, and it'll populate. You'll be able to see. Hmm. I'm consistently there for people I work with. I'm loyal. If I believe it, I can and will achieve it. I care deeply. I like to make others smile. Thank you for that. It's important for us to realize and start to put language to the beliefs that we hold about ourselves, especially if we're trying to cultivate specific beliefs in others, because just like Zach said and Christy said, if we don't hold the same belief about ourselves, it's really difficult to cultivate it in others. Great. Thank you. I am a rock star. Let's end with that one. I love it. Okay. So I'm going to move on to the next one here. And I'm going to ask you, looking back, among these categories, who helped to cultivate that belief in you? Who do you think? What trusted adult in your life? Right? And I'm sorry, I'm going to move through these quickly. So if you can bear with me. Yeah, we'll go on. So parents and caregivers are a primary, but close second, friends, teachers, other family members. Oh, look at that, 23% other community members, coaches. All right. The next one is, who contributed to those beliefs that you might not have noticed? Christy mentioned the bus driver, the school nurse. She noticed that they cared for her when she wasn't having certain needs met. Oh, my piano teacher, my animals, my grandmother, track coach. Yeah, this the skill here, and it is a skill, is starting to notice and understand and pay attention to how people are cultivating these beliefs in you. The cashier at Publix. Yeah, I joke around with the boba tea guy for my kids. They love boba tea, and we've developed a real relationship with him. The church, the pastor at the church, random people I encountered. Thank you, guys. Okay, so the 5 core beliefs that rose up from the prevention and the flourishing science when we synthesized it. The 5 core beliefs, because there are many interrelated beliefs we're going to talk about, but the core beliefs are these 5. And what was so fun at the institutes is because we had 2 days with them in person, we were able to kind of activate different ways of remembering these 5 core beliefs, because I'm telling you, I could spout these off in my sleep if you asked me to. We've been immersed in them so long. But 2 of the ways, in case it's helpful for you, that we helped people to memorize them, because I'd encourage you to memorize them. I was so impressed with Jeff Beeson, our executive director, when he memorized them and did it in front of a whole audience. He came up and recited them for an ADAPT mug. But we put the beliefs to actions, and then we also put it to a little song. And so the actions are, I am seen and loved. I am seen and loved. So if you're with a coalition, this could be a fun exercise, right? To do with your youth. I am seen and loved. I matter. I can influence my life and health. I can overcome hard things. And I have support. I have support all around me. So I'm seen and loved. I matter. I can influence my life and health. I can overcome hard things. And I have support. And then on a flight to maybe our 3rd or 4th institute, I thought, I wish we had a little song for this, because I memorize things, right? Like, you can't forget the words of a song. So I tried to put it to various universal ones I thought people would know. And some of these, you just can't replace those words. Those words belong with that song. So I thought about my favorite composer, Beethoven. And one of my favorite pieces of his is Ode to Joy, which many of you are familiar with. Almost everyone knows. Da 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 da, right? That's Ode to Joy. And so I thought, that's perfect. It perfectly fits, and I'm going to sing it for you now. I'm sorry, I apologize. I'm not a professional singer, but I do know that the Youth Institute participants really appreciated an opportunity for song. I am seen and loved, I matter. I can influence my life. I can overcome hard things. I have support. Oh, yes, that's right. So, in case that is helpful for you, I'd encourage you to go ahead and commit these to memory. Don't go throughout the rest of the day without activating one of them in your mind and consciously going back to the toolkit to reference these. So, let's get into them a little bit. When we talk about being seen and loved, we're talking about feeling recognized, accepted, respected for who you are, cared about as an individual by yourself. You need to love yourself, see yourself by others, and also by a higher power, because spirituality is across the board in the science a definite protective factor and one that can be engaged with youth if it's meaningful to them. With I am loved, we're talking about an agape love, this kind of universal, selfless, unconditional love for you. It's purposeful, it prioritizes the well being of others, shows a variety of different connection facilitators. And it's the opposite. This belief is the opposite of feeling invisible, unheard, disliked, neglected, or having conditions placed on us for that love. That's the first belief. And one dimension of this that became very apparent we wanted to bring forward is that, Christiane mentioned earlier, I matter just because. It applies to this as well. I love you just because you're a fellow human, right? And this is something I want to bring forward in my way of being with all humans. But no matter what you tell me, I'm not going to run away. I know who you are and I still want to be here with you. You're safe to show yourself with me. You can trust me with your truth. That's part of that belief that we cultivate in them. When someone truly sees us, we know that various neurotransmitters are released that are protective in nature. With I matter, what I want to draw forward from that, because you had a whole hour on that one, is the sub-beliefs. He mentioned I am worthy, I am capable, and how they attach to these protective factors of self-esteem and self-efficacy. When we feel value, we add value. When we add value, we feel valued. And it's this mutually reinforcing cycle that we don't want to forget. But what's important is that we consider what some of those barriers to cultivating that belief might be. Zach mentioned busyness, but here's a big one, believing that people already know. And it's a balance between cultivating the belief I matter too frequently, right? Because it's at the forefront of our minds, with building it into like a normal rhythm, making it a rhythm so that affirmation is steady and it truly becomes a way of being. The third belief is I can influence my life and health. And the thing that immediately just blew up for us when we were looking at the prevention science, flourishing science, and thinking about agency, right? Youth agency and this capacity to influence their life, right? These 5 strategies came forward from the literature on how we can activate that agency. And these are little micro skills in and of themselves, right? For cultivating this belief of I can influence my health and life. For I can overcome hard things, I want to introduce you to some of the interrelated beliefs that we start to see surface. And so if I'm building this idea, trying to cultivate this idea within you that you can overcome hard things, if I'm tapping up against and you've got pre-existing beliefs like, you know what, I can come up with many ways to solve a problem, right? I'm capable. I can learn from mistakes and setbacks. If I'm bumping up against that, it's only going to solidify it and create a stronger sense of conviction about that. Today, we're going to hear from Carlton Hall, who's just brilliant at bringing some of these concepts to life. He's going to talk a little bit about hope, but overcoming hard things Hope is a flourishing and protective factor. And hope can be assigned language and concrete activities to help cultivate it within youth. And it's important to talk about it. Hope theory is just one theory, one way of thinking about it, where you're working with youth to identify goals and pathways to achieve those goals, and then activating that agency to achieve them. And those three things will, in and of themselves, begin to cultivate a sense of hope. The fifth belief is I have support. And I mentioned earlier, man, we're not talking about just, I can come to you when I'm struggling. We are talking about you are supporting me by exposing me to new possibilities in my life. You're thinking about me. You're connecting me with people that can influence my future. And I grabbed these from the Search Institute, who focuses on 40 developmental assets. And I really appreciated them in their science. And you can take a look at some of these different ways, different beliefs that will come up. Interrelated beliefs are not here, but these are the activities that can create different interrelated beliefs. And this is kind of what's going through a youth's mind. Inspire me to see possibilities for my future. Introduce me to people who can help me grow. Stand up for me when I needed that advocacy. These types of things help to cultivate the belief I have support. And I'm just drawing to your attention here, within your toolkit, we have all of the interrelated beliefs listed. So you can just take a look at those because they're very important in understanding kind of the big picture of that core belief. And they're equally as effective in terms of, if you can start there, then you're going to get closer to this core belief right next to it. Okay, so let's dive into the way of being. The way of being, those 4 strategies, is how we show up and interact with youth to enable them to be well. And that's well by cultivating these core protective beliefs. And it's really comprised of 4 different parts that I introduced you to, but I want to lean in just a little bit to each of them. We're going to start with creating the environment. And let's look at, what are you talking about, Laura? It sounds kind of vague. Well, this exact poster, I mean, not the graphic, but the words, is one that I walked into when I went to open house for my 11-year-old who's in 6th grade. And I saw this in the teacher's room, and I took a moment and I said, do you know what belief that's cultivating? You know, do you know how powerful that is? I'm so happy to see these types of statements on the walls, environmental. And like Zach was saying earlier, you know, let them know what you missed about them. That's so powerful. But that's the type of environment. If those are the standards and the goals, the norms that we start to create, those are all emotional and physical environmental strategies as part of the way of being. And we've listed for you 6 different ways. Because I've got more to orient you to, I'm not going to go through them now, but I encourage you, spend some time with just how to show up, right? Maybe how to create that space for cultivating these beliefs. On page 13, you'll get a starting point for that. And one thing that immediately always comes to mind when I hear this is I was flying once on a work trip, flying home, and I was next to a lady, and we started a conversation, and I was sharing with her, I had 3 super young ones at the time. And I was like, you know, mornings are hard. I can't, we barely slept. I can't get breakfast ready on time. You know, I'm just a little frazzled, and I don't want to send them off without some sense of love and mattering. And she said, well, why don't you play some music? Why don't you play some music and start to create a happy environment? I'm like, that's brilliant. Why have I not thought of that before? And that's just one way. And the music that we've selected for our family then is one that we all relate to, one that conjures up a similar sense of comfort and peace. Just another example. All right, facilitating connection. I want you to rate real quickly your ability. This is our second strategy in the way of being. your ability to connect. Go ahead and hop on there. How would you say you do at connecting with others? Great. This is great. All right. So we've got a nice range. And the toolkit really can meet you at any point that you're at along this range. What we've done is we've created 16 facilitators of connection from the science. We drew them out. And this is honestly part of the work that I did with the American Psychiatric Nurses Association. I built a connection paradigm with them when I was serving as their president last year, a year ago. And 15,000 psychiatric nurses, we kind of worked together and built a way of thinking about connection itself as a strategy. And these surface from the literature, and we've now gone through and thought through them in application to prevention. So these 16 facilitators of connection are different qualities, attributes that we can bring forward in that way that we show up with that youth. And I'm going to leave the self-assessment exercise here, but Christine Klusman's the developer of self-connection theory, and she actively does this. She pauses at any given moment in time and asks herself, am I focused on this? Is it meaningful to me? Is it consistent with my goals and values? That's on page 14 of your toolkit if you want to head there. And so I'm going to introduce you to just some of the most common ones that came up for folks. Authenticity, this honest process of becoming more of who we are. Not just, this is me. It's an honest process and journey of becoming more of who we are. And I've got some reflection questions built in here that you can linger on as you revisit the slides. Patience, a propensity to wait calmly in the face of adversity. Think how important patience is for our work with youth, because sometimes the youth I work with drive me crazy, right? With different expectations or the lingering of trying to get things done, and it's not a priority for them, but it is for me. And so being able to lean into and understand the importance of that calmness and that patience while also bringing forward in communication what the expectation is. I want to show you a quick video because these really resonated with the audience to get some sense of this next attribute. Let's see. I don't think they're going to play, Patty. It's okay. Oh, down at the bottom. All right, take a look at. Like, it's not letting me. Okay.
It's really frustrating. I just don't know what to do about it. All right, sweetie. I just need to. You said Kayla? Okay. Yeah. Let me just. I gotta finish up this last email. But I really just don't know what to do. You know what? Friends kind of they come and go. All right. I'll be with you in just a second. But she's important to me. You know what? No. Audrey.
All right. That was one experience. Thank you. Where's the next?
I need to talk to you about something that happened at school today with me and Kayla. It's really frustrating and I don't know what to do. Oh no. Kayla's such a good friend. I know, she's so sweet to me. But we just got me sign off here. We got in a fight today and I don't know what happened. She's so important to you, Audrey. She really is. I don't know how to feel about it because it was a stupid fight and like emotions were everywhere. All right, tell me everything. I'm listening. Okay, so basically what happened is
You probably guessed it by now. This particular facilitator of connection is full presence, being fully present. That was the number one, quite honestly, across the hundreds of people that attended the Institute, the number one that they want to spend more time with. Humility was a big one. That's all broken down in your toolkit. Okay, and it's helpful to pay attention to maybe indicators of when you've connected with someone and asking youth, just asking them if they're feeling connected with you in any given moment. And these are some of the simple, quiet truths that we arrived at that are present within your toolkit. So, as Christine mentioned, the work begins with us. That's one of our main messages for this summit. You have a self-assessment exercise for your ability to engage in any of these facilitators of connection on page 67. And you also have a self-assessment for micro skills. And the important thing to know about micro skills as the third strategy is that these are small, specific competencies that we want to develop. And a quiet truth about relationships and connection is that we've got to be intrinsically motivated to continue to show up in this way, right? And so these 4 micro skills of full presence, curiosity, mirroring and reflecting back what we're hearing to facilitate that sense of deep listening, activating their agency, modeling, those are all universal. You can find those on page 20. But then if you go a little further on page 21, you'll see that we've broken down 3 specific micro skills for each belief as well. And these come from the science to help you do exactly what Zach was sharing earlier. Focus on the little pieces that can cultivate that mattering. That assessment for micro skills for each of the beliefs can be found on page 68. And finally, the 4th strategy in the way of being is developing actual skills in youth. And within your toolkit, you've got on page 29, these skills with very specific exercises. It's not for the weak of heart. We've had, multiple people investing in developing these. They are all you're probably already using a lot of these. It's a starting point for each of these skills to get you going, and then you put your own words and language and time to them. And as Patty likes to say when she presents on skills, if you need to divide up the 6 to 8 steps for each of them, maybe start it on the car ride to a sports practice and then resume it when they get back in and they're headed home. Paying attention to that timing is important. And we have a process, within the fostering skills section, that number 4, developing skills in youth. We have a process for practicing that. This is one example of a skill that we used in the institutes and an example of what you would see. So recognizing that different youth have different capacity for, preferences for, and expectations for connection, we also want to understand their backgrounds and their differences. And so we have a section that will relate to that too. And you can find that on page 40. And the scaling of health promoting relationships content up into teams and organizations has been addressed on page 45. So I'll leave you with our final message that every interaction we have with youth is an opportunity to build or reinforce these 5 protective beliefs. And the skills are one of those 4 ways, right? But we also consider those protective and like to draw them out as protective skills because they require an investment on our part. And all of these main messages can be found on page 66 of the toolkit if you'd like to share this information forward. We are building what we're calling a training community for health promoting relationships. We've had a lot of requests come in. We are at capacity and not able to fly across the US to train on this like we did for those 2-day institutes as often as we would like. We cherish that time in those communities, but we also recognize that we are at limited capacity. And so we're building a training community for those who want to bring this work forward in intentional and effective ways so that they can make sure they're aligning with the science. And so if you'd like to join that, you can feel free. You'll have another opportunity at the end of the summit. And also it's on our website now, this QR code or the link to it. And I'll leave you with a poem that I wrote in the spirit of authenticity. I wrote this when I actually developed the connection paradigm with the psychiatric nurses. And it remains so relevant because it directly applies to a call to action of sorts for us all to pay attention to this science. It's not soft skills like we've talked about. These are real activities that can make an impact on our youth. I'll read it to you. I am well today. May I pay attention to that stirring deep within. Silence all the distractions, all the noise, and begin to connect with intention to see and be seen. Engage in ways that matter. Practice humility, for the fruits of a connected self are gateways to much more. Trust agency, hope, belonging, how they help us soar to the heights of well-being, promoting healing and recovery. Comfort, safety, a sense of control, preventing injury. Connection is fundamental to a life well lived, yet rarely noticed as the free and glorious gift it is. Quite possibly the most important thing I can do each day. Do I seek it? Do I offer it? Do I cultivate it in every way? For when my time has come to lay my head for its final rest, will I close my eyes, knowing I have done my best to connect with others in purposeful, meaningful ways, loved and forgiven, listened closely, fully engaged? Will I know I live my days by my highest values and priorities, denied my pride, steadied my soul through spirituality, pruned those qualities that led me astray, and nurtured those that paved the way for myself and others to confidently say, I matter, I can overcome, I am well today. This poem kind of captures the spirit of everything we've been feeling, and I appreciate you letting me read it to you because in some ways it's been one avenue of just expressing how important we've realized relationships and relationship science is. So we've appreciated the opportunity to bring it forward to you. We have 2 minutes left. Yeah, come on up here. Patty Fersizides, our
Hi,
Associate
folks.
Director.
Hi, so great to be here. So Laura, just a couple of minutes because there was a lot of inspiration, I think, happening. A lot of people were resonating also with this idea of working at the level of the belief system and how that can inspire change of attitude, behavior, and really help us achieve the goals that we're all aiming to achieve with prevention. There was also a lot of gratitude around the song and the emotion.
Oh,
And people really
Good.
resonated. And we had some of our Institute attendees also just talking about how beneficial getting up and doing it was for really sort of committing that to memory so we can call upon it in our interactions with youth. So there were just a couple of questions that came in, and I think this could be really helpful in guiding people in this work as they move forward. So far today, a lot of the work that we have heard from yourself and the previous presenters focusing on the mattering and the protective beliefs and these ways of being really signal that it's a call to us to be very intentional in how we show up and how we interact and engage with youth. And not only to do it once, but to become it, to really, do it with some consistency. So what recommendation would you give to our audience who might be starting off with opportunities to engage, starting off with opportunities to carry this forward, to see and reinforce what they might already be doing, but then to try new, to expand upon what they're already doing. So you've done a lot to inspire us, and we all understand the why. So the question is, there's a lot of opportunities for growth in that toolkit. How would you guide people for getting started?
That's a great question because it's so much, right? I'm going to approach this from a couple different angles. The first angle is I would go through this toolkit and spend quality time with it just by myself. And that's what we've had to do. So that's why I know it's important. I would linger on each of the facilitators of connection as a great starting point. What we've done with the ADAPT team, when we think about scaling it, is at any given team meeting, in April, I believe, I started bringing forward one facilitator, and we would spend 30, sometimes 45 minutes, to the point where Patty's like, Laura, we have other things we need to talk about. But we enjoyed it so much. Being able to talk about humility and only humility and bring that to life, and how we see it in others and what we admire about that, and how we might want to bring it into our team experience and the way we treat with each other. That was important. So that's one angle. The other angle is, after you read through it, I would start at any one of the 4 strategies that makes sense to you first. So, and you might say, you know, well, 2 of these are really standing out to me as kind of a natural. I would pick those. What's beautiful about this is that you don't have to do it all at once. Even engaging and noticing one person, like Zach said, that's going to start getting you somewhere. And it's about being patient with yourself and your team and your organization, and just honoring this reflection experience. Reflect as an organization how we might want to. We had one coalition say, I'm just posting up the beliefs on the wall. And she did. And her youth coalition sees those beliefs. And we have posters on our website, PDFs, that we'll send out to you. If you want to print out those beliefs and put them up, you can. That's her entry point into it. So that's what I would recommend. Make it your own. Reach out to ADAPT if you've got ideas, but start with the reflection piece, because awareness is first, intention then in ways that make sense for you, and start building up towards it. We'll never master it. We'll never master it. So give yourself permission to move at your own pace.
Thank you. I'm going to just borrow a couple more minutes from your lunchtime, folks, because I think this next one is really important, and one that will resonate for all of those folks who are working in prevention, who are working in a lot of their work being funded through grants and contracts. As you know, prevention work is often dependent on grant funding. So how might prevention professionals think about carrying this forward into their funding applications? And even in absence of funding, this is a bit of a 2-part question. How might we take this relational strategy, this relational prevention strategy, and infuse it into the existing prevention work that's happening? So that's kind of the 2-part question that came through.
Okay, stay here. I'm going to start with the last one and then maybe go back to the first one, because immediately what comes to mind is we have found with the ADAPT team and working with other organizations that, again, this word intention, if we build it into discussions, if we build in intentional meetings around working with our staff to look at, okay, the various activities that we engage in any given day, where are those opportunities to integrate and infuse some of these strategies, but also, very importantly, train. A large piece of this is training on it. And so ADAPT will be coming out with additional resources for that, to support you in that. But I would say moving with intentionality into building it in purposefully into your discussions, holding formal meetings about it, inviting youth also, their feedback and input into it, but starting to talk about it is the first step. And then if you've got funding, there are ideas. We have a center that if you wanted to hold a formal training on this, let's say you wanted a youth prevention institute, you can reach out to us and we can try to coordinate that if you have additional funds to bring the speakers out there. Or if there are other training methodologies that might make sense, or let's say you want to translate all the content into Spanish, that's probably like another natural next step for what we do. Reach out to us so we can accommodate all that. Yeah, what was the first part of the question again?
I think you tapped into it. It was this idea of, will funders start to pay attention, to the relationship science, and how do
Yeah.
we kind of build this into our funding applications
Yeah.
in a way that would secure additional support for this work?
Yeah, I would say training is the first step. Training, and then we are still thinking through what does fidelity look like to this? Because this isn't your traditional like intervention, right? This is a way of being. It's a fundamental way of being. And so you don't have to wait for funding. You can start right now. You can start right now and start incorporating it in ways that are meaningful to you and to your organization. So if I leave you with anything, that's probably the biggest message here is don't wait. Don't think that this is a formal program or model that you need to get funding for. Don't wait. Start right now. Start in your next conversation. Start in the next group of youth that you work with. Start in your next team meeting. Start talking about it. And the more you talk about it, the more it will become, the more it will be brought into existence. And you'll create that culture, just like Zach was saying. If you're not feeling like you matter, start cultivating the belief I matter in others. And eventually, that culture, that ecosystem, like Christine was suggesting, it creates itself. So that's our strongest message. It's just start doing it. All right, I'm getting the wrap up sign, Laura. So we're going to let you guys all go to lunch. Thank you for joining us today. And we're excited when we come back. We're going to dive into those playbooks and the toolkit, and we'll hear about the panel. Is that what's next, Patty? Yeah, we'll hear about those playbooks. All right, see you then. Have a great lunch.